So while I'm on beautiful Manaton Rocks, I thought it was a good opportunity to share this book with you, which is Living Faery, Fairy Witchcraft and Star Worship, Morgan Daimler. Now, I don't call myself a practicing witch, although I do relate very much to Morgan's approach to the fairies and others of it in a similar way of working with fairies. Witches have traditionally had a relationship with fairies, but I just want to talk a bit about my approach to them, which is very similar to what Morgan is talking about. And this path that I'm on with fairies, I'll just turn my camera around. Hi, this path I'm on with fairies is very much, they call to me. So I'm not, I'm not using ritual or anything to entrap them, or it's very much they come to me, or they've come to me and approached me, and it's very much on their terms. So I just want to share this page about, so you know a bit more about what I'm talking about with Morgan's approach to fairies. It's a very good little book. It's only 90 pages long, and it's I recommend further books about fairies as well. When a human witch or magician is the one in control, the situation is of course very much different, although one might argue no less risky. So she's saying that, fairies, there is risk with working with fairies. They're not all nice. They do have this trickster side to them. So even if you've got the best intentions and best, I always think, I'm a glass half full person. I always have the best intentions of working with fairies. They will inevitably work with you in a way that they send lessons your way. It's that I think you need to learn, and those lessons aren't always easy. They can be quite, very challenging. So it's just to keep an open mind when you're working with fairies. That's what they're about. So the dynamics of this engagement then are very different from what we see in the grimoire tradition, where a fairy might be invoked much as any other spirit, could be using a precise ritual format and for the human's purpose. So I don't work with them for my purpose. I've chosen to work with them for the protection of nature and the well-being of the planet. That's my intention with working with fairies, not for my own gain, if you like. So, and she's talking about walking with the fairies, and this is something that I am going to be doing more of, taking groups of people out and connecting with fairies. This year doing that a little bit more, and then I'm working towards a qualification where I can take groups of the public out on Dartmoor and take them to these special places on Dartmoor. So in the meantime, taking to the places that are easily accessible. So therein lies the crux of the difference between the two approaches, and why perhaps we see the idea of a more ritualised work with fairies requiring protected spaces and names of power, while more intuitive approaches do not. So that's my approach. It's more intuitive. To use a compass is to be in control. To walk without one is to acknowledge that you aren't in control. And this really stuck with me because a week or so ago I was up on Dartmoor looking for a pixie place, and I had a compass, I had a map, I had the map was very useful to work out where I was, because it was in the middle of thick woods and lots of rocks on a slope. And I also had some dowsing rods. And I sat down, I was wandering around for hours and hours and hours. I wasn't trusting what the dowsing rods were telling me. I wasn't trusting my intuition. Sat down, put down the rods, had something to eat, something to drink, got up, walked away, left my rods behind. And it was only, I'd walked away, I'd walked a few hundred metres, and I thought, I left my rods behind. Could I find them? No, they'd gone. So I feel like, this is part of the lesson, that the pixies want us to work, and the fairies want us to work intuitively with them, to walk intuitively with them. Now, the other side of that is Dartmoor's a very wild and potentially dangerous place if you don't know where you're going. The weather can change very suddenly, so whereas yes, I love that walking intuitively, and I try and do that as much as possible, it's also sensible to have an idea of finding out where you are and how to get back to civilization. But the walks I'm planning on doing with people are going to be very intuitive. They're not guided nature walks. They're not about spotting, different species of flowers and animals and things. It's more relating to the landscape intuitively and connecting with fairies intuitively and engaging with the magic, because it's about and very much about this tradition that I know many people that work with fairies and the wilderness are engaging with now, and it's about re-enchanting ourselves, re-enchanting the landscape, seeing it through the eyes that people used to see it through, in this very magical, enchanted way. And that can bring so much to our lives. It's so good for the soul. I do a lot of walking for my mental health, to help maintain balance in my life. I've got a very busy life, and also during lockdown I found it helpful as well, just to keep some mental well-being as well as physical well-being. The two go hand in hand, and spiritual well-being, etc. So she talks about there are those who approach them, the fairies, with protective circles, prayers and names designed to control, and there are those who approach them without those things, but perhaps with an offering and a good word. That's more my style. So to say, honour them in a way, and say, I recognise you, I recognise that you are a real presence in this landscape. How they are approached sets the tone for the entire relationship that may follow. Very true. And it is understandable that many would rather choose to control the situation than risk being controlled by it. But when you're in control, you will only ever gain as much as you can bargain for. And with themselves, i.e. the fairies, that will never be as much as you think it is. When you are willing to turn yourself over to them, and I don't discount exactly what that means or why the church saw it as the same thing as selling your soul to the devil, I don't see that either, then you will gain as much as they are willing to give you. And they will always freely give more than they will ever give by compulsion. So we might set out and think, I'd really like such and such in my life, you know, for example, common thing, some romance, romantic partner, and they're more likely to send you something that you will learn from, as I said before. And I've certainly had that with relationships and friendships. You know, they will give you what they think that will help develop your soul, your ability to, you know, to see that, see beyond the illusion, if you like, of the life, the human sort of illusions that we create about such things. And what is the purpose of a relationship, really? Well, it's about coming into a relationship with ourselves and learning about ourselves. And if you're in a relationship, you'll know that if there are challenges, you learn from them, and you know, it changes you forever. So yes, and I've come to a point now in my life at the moment, and fairies are listening, so I've got to be careful what I say, that I'm really happy to be single. Actually, I focus on myself and my relationship with myself, because I've realised that's where it starts, and it's never never ever perfect. You know, I know that I'll go into another relationship think, well, I've learnt that and that, everything's gonna be fine, and then inevitably something comes up and think, right, that's something else I need to work on. So it's an ongoing thing, really. We never get there, wherever there is. So thought I'd just share that about my approach, and now I'm going to walk on a bit, and I'll share some video or photos of anything I find along the way. Got set up for now.